All right, thank you. Welcome everyone to the Wallet Interoperability Special Interest Group call for August 4th, 2025. Today on the agenda, we will hear from Ramik Sheshniak on interoperability, system requirements, building, running, updating, documenting. So really looking forward to this and digging into it. We are recording this call. It will be posted on the meeting page later today. We are following the Open Wallet Foundation Code of Conduct and the Linux Foundation Antitrust Policy. Let's see, moving into introductions and announcements. Let's see, one introduction I had, the UDI PLO is something that Mirko Malik has created. It's a middleware layer that speaks fluent UDI wallet spec, so your backend doesn't have to. Stands for UDI Protocol Liaison Operator, and we will have him on the call in a few weeks to talk more about that. So that's a pretty cool piece of news in the community. Are there other announcements or introductions that anybody would like to make if you're joining the call for the first time?
I'll throw up an announcement at DIF. The Affinity organization has contributed their Rust implementation of did-web-vh, both a server and a registrar. So full functionality in Rust. Great performance. It's had a bunch of performance testing, interoperable with the other two implementations that have been around for a while. So pleased to see that and expanding that out. On the Akapai side as well, we'll should be this week that we're able to post a tutorial of using it with traction. And so, in a few minutes, be able to create a did, use it to create a non-credits credential definition and issue credentials. We are waiting on getting the did-web-vh Credo PR merged. There was feedback on it today, so we're hopeful that maybe later today or tomorrow we'll get that merged as well. So did-web-vh progress in lots of places.
Awesome. That's great to hear. Would you happen to have a link to anything related to that? That'd be great to see.
Yes. Yeah, I'll update the page as we
Okay,
move on.
awesome. Thank you so much. All right, any other announcements or introductions? Looking ahead to the next couple weeks on this call, we've got some more great topics coming up. First, global interop of wallets. This will be about the May 5th demonstration of OpenID for VP plus digital credentials API plus the high assurance interop profile plus the digital credentials query language. So that'll be great to dig into, as well as the UDI PLO middleware that I just mentioned, Longfellow, ZKP, and then the trust spanning protocol from the Trust over IP Foundation are all topics that are coming up pretty soon. Let's see. Then in terms of project updates, Stephen, is there anything you wanted to call out specifically related to Akapai? Oh, and then Sean.
We just keep moving on. There's more things being done every week, a bunch of things on logging. I think I talked about this last week, the addition of the minimal example repo. We'll be talking about that at Akapug tomorrow. I noticed Dave McKay's here. We might talk about Canon somewhat tomorrow as well on that. So if folks can join Akapug at this time tomorrow, that'd be great.
Awesome. And Sean, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I'll put this in the wiki. I'm a little behind today. So the VCX call for this Wednesday has been canceled. The VCX team is too many maintainers on vacation. They didn't want to have a call and no one shows up. Sure, I'll add it in. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
So that's the VCX news. Longer term, sometime in late September, early October, the Open Wallet Foundation would like to have a maintainer summit. No details on that yet. I'm trying to lock down at least a range of dates, reach out to the maintainers, start working on an agenda, but that's coming. Also, we have a TAC call this week. We have two projects, one being proposed as a lab, and the team formerly known as Identity Credential, now known as Multipos, is they are going to make a proposal to graduate from labs to growth. So we're pretty excited to see that. The Multipos teams, they're really nice folks. They're doing tons of hard work, and so we're pretty excited to see another project raise their hand and say, "Hey, we're ready to move up a level." So that was it for me. Charles, I'll add those in a second.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. Any other project updates or announcements or introductions? All right. With that, I will stop my screen share and I'll go ahead and pass it over to you, Ramek. Thank you again so much for joining us.
Thank you. Yeah, let me just share this. Can you see my screen is the first thing I'll ask.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's put this onto slideshow. Right. Okay. This is not about anything new, apart from the whole project is. So who am I? First of all, I'm a security architect and an applied cryptographer. I've been a security architect for 15 years because someone asked me to be one. And I've been an applied cryptographer for 25 years because that was the first thing I started in. My current work is in audit, doing PCI DSS, ISO 27001 and SOC 2 for various customers, mostly using Vanta and Drata as portals. And outside of that, I design comms of various sorts in security and cryptography. You may hear from that later with a project coming. Things I've done. I did the first PKI in 1998. I celebrated with Stephen Farrell when Baltimore signed with Visa. I did the mobile phone security for Symbian back in 2000. I've got 25 years in identity, so I've done 11 global identity platforms, and I designed and deployed Malta's EID card from bits of paper to an actual live project in 2011. I've got 16 patents, including a full digital identity system, and I'm currently on having a 17th patent being looked at at the moment. I came to this with, I've got very little blockchain and hyperledger experience before I came to you. I'm skeptical of everything about you. I wish I wasn't, but I am. It's just natural from what I do. And basically, I'm looking for how to actually see from someone who's never seen this before. And so when I came to the Open Wallet Foundation, it was sort of like from a blank sheet of paper. And in some ways, that's a good thing. Just to start off here, I'm not trying to upset anyone. I think your projects are great. What I'm trying to do is make things better, help you, and look at it from a new person's view. So please don't scream at me and tell me it's rubbish, because, well, you can tell me it's rubbish, but don't say I've done anything horribly wrong unless I have done something horribly wrong. I was introduced to this by my good friend Dave Alexander, who I've known 10 years-ish. And we worked closely on various projects in digital identity and trying to make things better there. And he said, can I help him here? So what I'm looking at doing is to try and make your projects from what we've got currently now, which is lots of developer projects, into production releases. Making it so that every time you do a release, it's a major release or a minor release, and trying to get you more into the release strategy, which is what people are looking for. Because what is happening outside of our world, which I see every week, which I'll come to later, is the fact that everything is moving very fast at the moment, mostly because the European Union offered 25 million to various projects to do a digital wallet for themselves. Then you've got New Zealand, Bhutan, Australia, UK, and various other places looking at digital wallets. I've seen Ireland this week. And it carries on, it's gathering speed, and it will only get faster. What I'm also seeing this week, and seeing more of, is more talk about blockchain identity and more talk about anonymous credentials, verified credentials, which is becoming a big fashionable thing. What I was asked to do was to look at a sort of DevOps, DevSecOps idea. And so I've done this many times before. So what I'm looking at doing is to try and see what requirements you need to build things with, how your documentation is, how the building is, how the running of systems are, updating, interop, and how we deal with dependencies, your open source usage, DORA, and then going into stuff for later, having done those bits, looking at testing the systems, possibly using OWL or otherwise, and also checking things are correct. And then the last things which people forget is the threat modeling and issue handling for our system. So incident handling. So if something goes wrong, what do we do? You've seen all these big pictures before. I put them here for reference to show that this is what the whole group is aiming for, because I'm trying to bring this more to a group, and the big picture in the technical view, which David supplied me. And this is the aiming document, as it were. So the repos in the open wallet we generally see, although I've seen one extra today, are the ones I've listed. So what I'm going to do now is go through them all one at a time and show you what I'm seeing from things. Generally speaking, actually building these things, the documents for doing so they're not always clear. And basically what's needed is not clear. So what tools do I need to build the things? That's not clear. The minimal set of documentations of how to build them would help. And awareness of what people need to install to build your systems would be nice. So it's some of them are better than others. It's patchy. And I need to build them from scratch. So I've never seen, I treat it like I've never seen your work before. And basically, if I do so, I delete them and I get another version from the GitHub from scratch, and delete all the caches. To give you awareness, I'm not a Linux person, which is a good place to be in the Linux Foundation. And I'm not a great fan of verified credentials, claims, or blockchain. I'm an old-fashioned person, and I run on Macintoshes, partly because I've used to building on them. Documentation. What I need is how do I get started? So when I came to this group about 6 weeks ago, this document wasn't here. I was slightly baffled when I joined you of where to start, because I found the Open Wallet Foundation front page actually awkward to actually find where things were. David provided me with this wonderful crypt sheet, which I've given the Google link for it, and it's in draft at the moment, but it does help enormously for someone who has no idea where things are. And it means that now I know what groups to look at, where to go to, and then see to how your groups are. So I highly recommend to starters to point them at this crypt sheet. It's worked for me, and I'm hoping it works for other people. Then we go into project documentation. So I try to find a one page of what's going on from the links below. What I'm looking at here is, tell me what your project is, what it's trying to do. When I wish to look at the code, I'd like a one-page description of the project. So what is it? And a brief history would be nice. So it's like saying your relationship to Aries Hyperledger it's very hard to actually understand as a new person where that is and what it is. And also links to your GitHub and links to your Discord channel. That would be a good starting point for me. What I've got here is where I'm seeing mostly the code, the links I've seen for these things to a starting point. And diagrams. There's a definite drought of diagrams. This is I've taken from the British Columbia group, which shows me how the bifold wallet works in British Columbia. And we really could do with a similar thing for each of our projects here, just as though someone in a one-page diagram, this is what our project is doing. This is how the other bits fit as well. It would help enormously. And so it means that at the moment, I'm sort of groping in the dark mostly. A clear diagram would help so much of just saying, this is what I think they're doing. Building systems. What I'm looking at is, what are we trying to build? Every time I build a system, is it building a library? Is it building an executable? Is it building a binary? Documentation, it's very patchy. It needs to be a lot better. Clear build and run documentation is missing in places, or it's somewhere, it's patchy. And also, how do we join the bits together? So in other words, how is ASCAR working with Accapide as an example? And that would be nice to see. And so because outside of you, people looking at your project will be looking at, how can I take these modules and make them pick and choose which bits I'm looking at? What do we get when we put them together as well? Where's the big roadmap of the big architecture of what do we do when we join everything as one? And build scripts for each one would be great, building from scratch. And usage examples, the other one. So building to the system, getting your binaries out, as in other words, I don't see binaries. Binaries would help enormously. And then a set of usage examples of saying, okay, this is what we do. Lead the horse to water. We want people to use our systems. And then afterwards, how do we talk in Discord if we've got problems? because we end up in the channel for the project at the moment around you talking about various development work, and it's sort of like it muddies the waters when someone just wants to know about some support work on it. What is published and where? So I did a quick look in the usual open source places for where stuff is in crates, PyPy, and npm.js. And some stuff everything's labeled Open Wallet Foundation. I didn't go to anything else. But to show you the example, there's 190 JavaScript packages, 4 Python and 5 Rust. I've passed the investigation I did from this to David Alexander, who I think has passed it to Sean. I lived this with him. And basically just to show you what examples I actually gained from this. We need to have things up to date, clearly able to use the parts, so we can so people using our system can go, I want to choose this bit for this bit. And also keep the modules up to date, because modules on npm.js are up to 5 years old now. And it's those we need to almost like put a note of saying, look, this is deprecated, if it is. I wanted to build Akapi. I've desperately tried to build it. In 6 weeks, I'm still no closer. I had fun with pyproject.2html, which I made a wheel file, which didn't help me. I cannot make sense of your getting started documents. I want to again. I tried the dev getting started, I've tried the getting started. I've tried the link below, which is listed for the Hyperledger Ares. I still can't build it. And I want to know when I've built it, what I get. And this is outside of Docker. Your Docker builds, Docker is there. I love the fact you have a Docker, but I want to be able to when I build the PyPy version, I get a massive set of arguments for the tools for start and provision and upgrade. And I don't know what to do with any of them. I've tried following the link I had above, because it's the only link I found with instructions of how to use it, and it doesn't help. Again, I know that Akapi uses packages in its system. Trying to almost break these out, as it will, or show how they link together would be helpful, almost so that the people can use Akapi as part of a bigger picture. And I'm hoping the AME helps here. So I'm looking forward, Stephen, for your minimal experience, which I will be looking at soon. Credo, yeah, there was a good starter guide for Credo. It does build, and yes, but it uses Node and Yarn. I think we're using PNPM and Corpac now. It builds, and I do get something, but I don't know what it gets when I get it. It's almost like as I say, I deal in 15 languages myself, so each one I do, I have to do it very lightly. And this is an example where I'd need someone just to say, look, just tell me what I'm trying to build here, and I would build so. I've just shared your Anon Creds, DigCom, and ASCAR descriptions to someone in the Credo group because they're asking. We almost need a frequently asked questions on these things to say what these parts are, because people are beginning to ask, what are they? And we all know what these things are, but to other people who've come for the first time, what is DigCom? Where is it? Where is it used when it's not being updated much? And Anon Creds and ASCAR, as it were. It's called Do Build, by the way. They have a lovely Build Your Universal shell. That's something I would highly look at for other things, and it makes a nice. In Macintosh, it makes a dynamic library. It's a dylib. And then I want to know what to use it for. It's like, where's the tests of what do I do with it? How do I use it for other things? I'm sure you know, but I don't as a first starter. And how do I use it for other things? How can I use it elsewhere if we're going to carry on using it? I've heard mutterings recently of us using other things on these for storage. I believe it's a storage system, but please tell me, because I didn't see it from the documentation. Bifold, yeah, it builds. I have struggled building the mobile apps with it, which is when I'm sort of looking at it deeper now. The CocoaPods and Google Developer are the struggling bit, which you almost need deep instructions to tell people how to use them, because Google Developer's about 1 gig of download for it. What I thought was strange was the use of Hyperledger items, so you're almost going outside the group in some ways. I know you may not be, but it feels like that to someone who's seeing it for the first time. And I did look for your mobile apps on the app stores or somewhere to I can just download the app and see what it looks like. They're not there at the moment. I would like them to either be on a local GitHub, download the APK, or on an app store for me to download. SDJWT, it gets the gold star. It's getting started. Documentation is good. You can see what they're trying to build. It's got example code, and I'd like them to add the YouTube video and the slides from it. That would help. It's using PNPM, which is a little thing, and I'd like them to also describe what Hopeye is to them, because they know what it is, but having a link or some description of it would be nice, so that we can see the provenance of what it is when Hopeye is also getting in the news at the moment. So building lessons. It's still not simple to build from scratch at the moment. I'm a stubborn person when it comes to building. I will carry on trying to until I've built the bloody thing. But you do need a clear, easy to use getting started guide. Assume someone knows nothing about your projects. I know you're getting people using it. You want as many as possible to come and stay and build on all the free platforms. So you need, so I think Bifold's got a Macintosh ARM instruction set, which does work. You want little instruction sets for all three platforms. And it's almost like, it's generally a write once and then check it's okay every time you do a major release. And expect them to want to build all your platforms together. They want to join the dots, as it were. So you're looking as your own project as a silo at the moment. People outside don't do that. They're going to start looking as, hey, we're the Open Wallet Foundation. What happens if I build all these 6 systems? What happens if I build everything labs as well? How do they fit in? It's trying to build the big pie of the project to say we're the Open Wallet Foundation's projects here. Now, what are we building from it? And as I say, a building and using sort of like, there needs somewhere to tell people, okay, I can't build this, what do I do? And the same with using sort of thing. It's going to become more of a thing when people start wanting to use your systems. And using common build platforms, you tend to do so where possible. Some sort of connection would be good where we choose what we're using for things like TypeScript and Rust. Rust is fine. And similarly, so what we're trying to build here is to build a sort of phone blocks idea, if people know the phone system, where you're sort of like making a big patchwork quilt of all your projects to make something where someone says, I want this to do this bit, this to do this bit, this to do this bit, and this to do this bit. And that's what someone outside will be looking to do. So they'll be able to construct an architecture for them to build their own wallet bespoke from what you're doing, and then build it for the use case of doing, and then say afterwards, this is what I've used to build it. That's what I see this being as, which is why I've looked at the phone blocks idea. Seeing it from the first time. And we do always need more people. So people coming in, we want them to be easy to get on board, get up to speed, and help. Updating and interoperability. Current development, you're all doing it. But change logs, every time you do a release, put a change log in. Tell me what it's different, because I've got to do a dependency check on the system when I go whenever a release comes out. So I've just done the Bifold one, and I can't see what's changed from the previous version at the moment. That's just, I know there's change logs, there's little change logs, but we need a sort of like a major at the top level. This is a change log of what has changed. You'll get this when you come to someone wants to use this for professional use and has an audit, when they say what happened at this version. Keep your documentation easy to read and up to date, so clarity is good here. Announce your updates in the Wallet Interoperability group. Every week so far I've come to this group, and Stephen Curran's here. Bless him, he's a regular attendant explaining what Akapai is doing. It would be nice to, if you cannot make the groups, either say you're on vacation or explain what you're doing by sending an email to you. So there is a description. So if someone comes to the group or stumbles on us, there's a place for people to say, this is what this project is doing this week, to show what work is going on, because visibility is king here, and seeing how you do different ways to solve the problems is going to be more of a problem here, more of a thing here. And we need to base this on the architecture diagram, because that's what people are going to see first. And it's almost like use your solutions based upon the architecture. That's what people are going to be looking for, and looking at how they connect and interoperate with your systems. Again, we need working binaries whenever possible, so I can just use them, and APIs and replaceable modules where the users want them to be. So dependency checking, we're all using open source packages. Sometimes we only know they're being developed as well. They are always. You've got to be aware. Keep your dependencies up to date. Be aware that this market is being attacked constantly. This is a non-stop. There's a site called socket.dev, which I highly recommend, which I'll show you an incident in a minute of what's happened, a recent one, which actually affects Bifold. And it's almost like keeping your eyes aware, watch the news, and see what's going on, which could be a threat to your system. I'll be doing it as well on every release, but like this, likewise, I expect you to be doing the same. Do your housekeeping. To give you an example, this is ESLint config prettier. This has only had 3 news hits. It happened 2 weeks ago. I missed it. I saw it this week. I saw about it because I found it when I was building Bifold, the new version, and I found this. I went, oh my God, it's only got 78 million weekly downloads. The good news is the people only attacking Windows systems. So if you're on a Windows system, be careful. And it has been patched now. So this has been fixed, but it shows you how fast this goes. And just so be aware, this malicious activity is still ongoing and it never stops. I've got new ones this week. And we use open source everywhere. I think I've got 1,500 artifacts in Bifold at the moment, which I'm currently chasing, to give you an example. And I want to do a spreadsheet for each one, so we have a lookup of what the actual things are. So we can just look at what, when an incident comes, we can go, here's what the actual answer is. Well, that's a future project to do. Keep to recent code builds as much as possible. Keep your sort of like your greater than signs as tight as you can do, because the less versions we handle, the better, the easier it is for me. Otherwise, I get a dependency checking and open source package nightmare to chase all these CVEs based on these things. I will continue to monitor usage every new major update. So if you do a major update, as I say, report it to the Wallet Interoperability group. You've done a major update, so I can then go and build it. It would help enormously. Threat modeling and incident handling. This shows some research I've been doing, because I do research every week. This is from ArcSiv this week. This is all the current threats on blockchain wallets. And I think we need to, I'll be looking at this later. This is sort of like parked for now, but this is a nice stopping point. This is from a recent ArcSiv paper explaining threat attacks on threat modeling for the blockchain wallet. So it gives us a starting point. I'll say no more for this out. This is future work. And incident handling. If something happens, we need to handle it accordingly. I know the Linux Foundation does this on our behalf in some ways, but I've shared my handling document to them so that we can handle it if need be to whatever bodies we need to report it to if something happens. What next for me? So I've helped with the developer crib sheet. I'll keep on doing this. I'm helping David because he's helped me introduce myself and basically work out what's where. I want to help your usage of your project. So when basically you're building your work, document how they actually work to someone who's not seen much of them, because you're very much deep involved in your projects, and it's almost like how do you actually, not just how do you appear to someone who's not actually familiar with them? That's the hardest part of writing your documents for new starters. I will carry on analyzing your dependency check results. I will say a dummy's guide to building our systems. That's something which we are going to need. We've been asked from people like Sean and David for a welcome mat, as it were, for our systems. Some way which makes people feel like they want to join our systems and not run away when they come and join us. On a more technical note, I want to do a security analysis. I need to make sure. I've been working with Credimi, who were here about a couple of weeks ago, looking at the standards-based view, which I've built for the architecture group, based on the Geneva work. And we're looking at digging into the standards and providing us almost like a short explanation of things like what is Jose, what is Coze, and all that stuff. And so you have a diagram to see what it's about. A security analysis of the system, so see that we're actually being correct. So what we're doing with things like base 58 is correct, and all those sort of things which need to be done to check everything is right. So it's almost like more formality there. Data visualization has almost been, well, we've done the first version of this. It looks horrible, but it does show that we have some projects which can almost be sort of self-contained in your system. So I've found 5 projects in Akapai. I'm going to probably have a chat with Stephen about saying, can we actually package them as a separate sub-project and say, can this be used as part of the building blocks? And similarly in other parts, it's like how Credo's used in Bifold. It's almost like at the moment it's still not clear how it works, and it'd be nice to make it clearer to people who've never seen it before how these things are working. So what I've done is I've treated you like a small company in DevOps. So where I have to prove to the CEO I can build your software. And you haven't passed, which is what I expected, because you're using not the normal set of language, you're using more the open source style of languages like Rust and TypeScript and such like, which has been a challenge for me. And I suspect for people building it, they'll have the same challenge. Similarly here, if I can do anything better here, please tell me. I'm not happy. I'm always open to suggestions. This has been done over about 10 years now. I'd keep doing this for customers. What also I do is I look at a whole of ePrint and a whole of ArcSiv every week. looking at blockchain, and I see blockchain wallet papers. I've got some this week. And we need a sort of research library or a place to put stuff so people can actually see what the latest news is about. And same with the tools, although there's not a lot of tools coming out in your field. I have looked. I've got about 2 or 3. And so the mission of this project is great. We want to make a system which actually people want. And we need to have, what we're trying to do is to get people to adopt this at scale. We want to bulk this system up and make this actual something people want to use, because we have the power here to almost make it under our control and offer choices about it. Otherwise, this excellent work will not be shown. It's almost like it'll get swamped by other things. There's other things coming, as it were, which is going to make us either very popular or very unpopular. And we need to be almost ready for these things when they come. So the things like the European wallet coming probably 2026 is not going to go away. And likewise, you've got other projects worldwide which are doing similar things, and they're gathering speed. What we need to allow is the users to be able to pick a mix. So in other words, I want to be able to say, I'm building my own wallet. I've come to the Open Wallet Foundation because you've got tools I can use. I want to hot swap this, pick this, etc. And we need clean, easy to use APIs between the systems. So you can, in other words, say, so for example, in SDJWT, I want to be able to use Cisco Jose rather than Parva Jose. That's an example I've got. And I will continue to try, it's almost like open the box on the open source bit to try and see where we can actually make this a better pick and mix system. Also a big picture of working together as a single unit needs. So we need to show what we're trying to build here as a set of projects together. What are we building? Where is it going? And see how it fits on the Geneva Standards project of how and the architecture diagram. What are we trying to build and how we're bringing it together? Okay. Every week I do a main list. Every Sunday evening, I lose 8 hours on a Sunday making this, and security never stops. When I started in 2014, there wasn't this tools around. There is some now, and I have a security main list. There's no blockchain on it or LLM, but if you wish to, I can send you what I get. If you wish to join it, it's a links list, and I send it out to people like David Alexander and various others of this group about this. So if you wish to join me and see what's going on, that's fine. And it's instant 0-day threat intelligence. So if I see something going on in the NPM or the various communities I monitor constantly, it goes in that list. Okay, thank you very much. Over to you, Char.
Thank you so much, Ramek. This was great reality check and to-do list. Really helpful to have this view from the outside perspective. So thank you so much. What questions do folks have for Ramek? Jim, looks like you've got your hand up.
Yeah, thanks. So Ramek, thanks. So here's all my complaints about everything you said. Nothing. I have no complaints. I think you moved the ball forward in a lot of areas with a lot of observations. I've been doing, I'll call it different work, but very similar on operations, DevSecOps, development, architecture, consumption side of everything. I think that maybe if I had to steal your 2 biggest observations, 2 things. One, you need to take not the production view of something, but the consumption view of it, correct?
Yes.
So you know, to be fair to you, you only said that 5 times on 5 separate slides. And you could have said it 10, but you did say 5, and that's wonderful. The other thing that occurs to me, having lived through crap so more important than it sounds idiotic, more important than development is what actually happens at runtime. And so I'll say 2 things. I loved your idea, which is correct, and that's where I come from. My background, it sounds idiotic, is non-technical business, finance, and marketing. So I taught marketing at University of Delaware. And so from a marketing manager perspective, there is no marketing in, I'll call it Linux Foundation, decentralized trust, period. It just doesn't exist. On the other hand, my world was marketing, point of purchase, advertising kind of thing, 3 seconds to get a hit long before the internet existed. We had less time than the internet in the physical world to communicate a marketing message to you of value. And so I would argue you have hit a ton of content value. there is an architecture that pulls that together, I think, in two different ways. One is the consumer focus on something is actually the more important part. It doesn't matter how great you built something. If it doesn't run right and nobody's consuming it, those are the real measures of value. In fact, we even have a value chain architecture, which I tossed blockchain 5 years ago and said, forget that. Let's focus on the concept of value chains. So there's really 3 points to anything. The first point is, have we identified value for anything, whatever the thing is that you're trying to do? So that's point one. So point two, though, is says, have we delivered value? And to your point, here, I go through not just these projects, Open Wallet Group and everything else, and UD and all of LFDT on lots of stuff. I would say we do deliver value. The problem is the third leg of the stool, which is, are we realizing value? And the answer is, oh, no, 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 no. We would all agree that there is some value realized. But to your point, if you summarized it up, you'd say the gap is we haven't realized the value potential there. So you're raising a very large question that needs a much better answer than you had the time to give today, period. So you've created a problem, you've thrown a couple of hand grenades into the floor here that have blown up. And now it's I guess collectively up to the group to do cleanup on aisle three. And I will say the two things that stick out, not the consumption side, but the runtime side, never gets enough focus. I'm involved now in an SSI architecture model that's, I'll call it highly secure, more so than the other providers that are out there. But it has all the same challenges. And I've also lived through being the operations manager for production runtimes at Fidelity, where we had very high security requirements, much higher than the federal government does, all that kind of stuff. And we had to automate runtimes. I work with Apple on automating customer care. And again, we had to automate runtimes and do things from an automated perspective that don't exist today on runtimes in terms of maintaining and rolling back and replays and all these kinds of capabilities that don't exist. And so the runtime side never gets enough. And you hit one thing that I blew farther open, which is something called um, the it was the dependency problem. So we all have real-time health checks that we do on, I call it operations assurance programs. So the health checks are all there. The reliability, the fallover capability, all of that resiliency is there. What's missing, and you hit it, it's you opened up the door on the dependency side, was the automated recovery problem that's missing. So the best example is it's not just zero trust. It's I'll call it beyond zero trust is it applied to a runtime, not the security part, but the actual runtime, and that doesn't exist. So in a zero trust world, you want to know what I think of Cloudflare, CrowdStrike? Nope, I trust none of that. Zero. There is no trust there. The problem is your big cloud providers do trust them. Microsoft is filled with bad trust models all over the place, which is why when I owned it for 5 years, I threw it away and said I won't go back there. Problem is, it's really the runtime that you're worried about, and we haven't gone far enough. So you did open up the doors. We just need to go farther with them. So, yeah, thanks for throwing all those hand grenades around today. Appreciate it very much.
You're welcome. Jim, basically from so far, you seem to be the only person I've seen so far doing the sort of runtime testing side of this and have had experience elsewhere. So probably yourself would be useful. I'll be talking to you later about this, as in where I get with this work, because it's still, as I say, this is just opening the door. There's hopefully a project management group to come after this, which if the TAC approves it and lets us to actually do, we have a project management idea. And after that is basically the idea is to try and make this a thing so that when they make a release, we run a full dependency check and to check everything is okay. So yes, your help on the runtime side, I will be reaching out to you. Is the comment I'll say.
Yeah, it sounds great. I will say this is embarrassing, but 30 years ago, We did do something for IBM. I was working for a company called OTI, and we built a solution that not only was automated, but it had, to your point, the full-time, complete dependency checking and complete top to bottom automated testing on everything. And our releases were every day. So we had to do not what I call testing on fixes. We had to test the entire product suite, which was over 100,000, couple 100,000 methods, 15,000 classes that we built. And to your point, we were consuming thousands of, I'll call it, components and libraries, right? So all of that had to get tested automatically. And as good as the developers were, and they were great, the reality was, as product manager, that what I found was the gaps were the side effects we didn't anticipate. And so being crushed by that, my lead architect built an automated regression test, call it a tool, a suite for the entire product, which in a sense saved us. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Stephen Coran, you got your hand raised.
Yes. So as the target of much of the hand grenades, the biggest thing I could use is, do you actually have notes per project of what you found? Because that would be the most helpful for me. Is okay, what did you, exactly what did you experience? What notes did you keep as you went through?
I have.
Things like, you mentioned change logs. We spend every release, we spend time gathering up and producing change logs. Are they crap? Or is it that Akapai was a good example of change logs, but others were bad? Or if it's bad, then we need to rethink, because we actually spend time trying to make developer friendly ones. So that's what I'd be most interested if you could provide notes for us.
I'm happy to do so, Stephen. I have got some so far, but it's just, as it were, trying to work with your systems at the moment. So it's sort of starting. This is like opening the door. So I want to do it as a first starter, to get someone who has never used your project before, and also for the audit side of checking everything. I will check the change logs myself. I think you're actually quite good on them. And also, as I say, I've got some projects from the data visualization for you to help, to almost like look at you and suggest we may have some sub-projects from you. Because your code itself is beautiful, by the way. I look at it, it seems to be Aries RFCs is what I'm seeing, based. Very standardized looking it is from the actual doing a deep dive of your code. And it's almost like trying to show this is the case is part of the thing, because it has been here a while, and it seems to be the most mature project of the set. And it's showing this is the case, as it were, showing why Akapai is as it is and how it's being treated as it is. That's what I think needs to be done. And it's, yes, I'm happy to help you with it. How do I do this? Do I reach out to you by email? Or
Reach out direct.
Definitely will do.
One of the other things, I was blown away when you said try to build and you still have not been able to, or something like that. One of the, I should definitely throw out, we have from the beginning unapologetically made Docker a first-class citizen in our world. So we made a conscious decision that we didn't care if people couldn't figure out how to go from scratch. And if they didn't want to use Docker, then they were kind of on their own, because we couldn't deal with every variant of every system and document. We had a person who actually came in and put a PR in for this long, all the steps he went through in his notes on how to get it working on his machine. And it was ridiculous, because we just can't support every developer's machine, because they're all going to have different. So anyway, to be very clear, and if it's not in Akapai documentation, that we expect you to use Docker, and if you don't use it, or at least to get started, you might want to shift into it. In our world, we use that all the way through to runtime and production use. We do have tons of DevOps in our deployments and things like that. Everything is organized and goes through what Jim talked about in his management of a runtime. That said, I know there's tons that the documentation and so on isn't there. So anyway,
The
the notes would be the most helpful.
Absolutely. The runtime is so the runtime is missing. The start provision, the actual variables on it, because you've got a page for each one pretty much of variables. And some way of getting it to, and usage examples is king here for getting someone to say, well, I've done a pipeline install, can I run it, or a Docker install? The reason I screamed about Docker is because Macintoshes hate Docker. We were using OrbStack, which we found, which actually is
Yeah.
because I had to find the network fix, which it doesn't do on Docker on a Mac, because it's never run well on a Mac. And yes, doing OrbStack helps, which is one thing I would suggest to anyone on a Mac,
Okay.
because you have the networking
Interesting.
feature. But it's the same as Docker. It just looks better and it actually better networking. The other side you've got is the fact of runtime. When I did pipeline install and I want to do Akapi start on the command line, I've tried to use the command line side of it, and I can't do so at the moment. It doesn't seem to connect to those command lines, but I will take that with you offline, Stephen.
Excellent. That'd be great. Thanks.
Most happy. Yep.
Jim Mason, then Dave McKay. Go, Jim.
Real quick, just Stephen, you brought up correctly the production of change logs, which hit back at me because when we did this work at Apple to automate customer care as a data lake for AI, the trick to it was we had, I'll call it our DevOps pipelines, if you will, went in two directions. And so we didn't just produce stuff out the door. We automated picking up the actual stuff that was sitting out there and bringing it back and doing an automated reconciliation to say, okay, we think we deployed this. We think we did this. We think we have that. Now observe the real runtime that's sitting out there, come back, tell me what the differences are, and automate that reconciliation for me. So to me, that's sort of I assume that's a normal process. I don't know that everybody automates it, but we did. But that I know, at least in my experience, was a fairly important concept.
Dave
Thanks,
McKay,
Jim.
you're up.
Dave, are you on mute?
Can't hear him.
Oh, I took my hand down and didn't unmute. Sorry about that. Yeah, thanks for this. I'm like a user consumer of all these projects. I use these in an offering that I sell.
Mhm.
And you're absolutely right. It's a really daunting thing to get in there and use this stuff. It's funny because it seems like, well, connect, issue, hold, verify. That sounds pretty straightforward, but there's a lot of sophistication behind it. And I've looked at maybe possibly contributing documentation back, but it's a pretty daunting thing. Like I understand like all of the projects that are being developed. There's a ton of work that goes into it to also have to maintain the documentation and think it through, like the eyes of someone like myself, is just a more work than I think this community right now can support. Do you think if we started to do that, that would attract more people? Does that like snowball and improve the documentation? Have you worked in other communities on this sort of thing?
I've worked in in proprietary areas, and once you start doing it, as I say, they mostly do Confluence pages, I hate. But I'm happy to be like the front. If someone has a documentation, I'm happy if they send it to me, my emails and the slides, and I can then park it to the people concerned, and being a sort of like a front point, so that they don't get snowed with loads of people trying to build stuff in different platforms. That could be a starting point. We need somewhere where it's actually looked after, as it were, to help to say, look, we're missing this bit. Can you focus on this, please? Because at the moment it's blank, and it is a bit of a daunting starter point. It's a very like steep learning curve to actually get involved in these projects to someone who's never seen it before. Partly because just how we are, because we're so busy doing stuff, and partly because it's a tough build at the moment.
So are you a resource paid by Open Wallet Foundation to help out?
No, I do this
Nope.
free. I'm a free person. I did this
Okay.
voluntarily. David asked me to look at this as to see what happened. and it's sort of it's spawned a monster is the polite way of putting it so far. And I'm following what I do normally when I go into businesses. So I do a sort of security sweep, and one of the things I do is check the source code to see, tell the CEO does it build, and also does it have any externals, which is what I've been doing with the dependency. That's why I look at what's published about stuff, and we have been doing this for a while now. And there's sort of like there's stuff which almost needs to be deprecated and marked as so. That's the other thing in the public world, and it's almost like focusing, because we're all so busy, heads down, looking at the project. Focusing on the big picture is the other thing which is being missed, which is what I'm trying to show.
Yeah.
Okay, well, maybe this is something I could contribute, which would be like you
Ha.
talked about an overall diagram, which is, you know, Credo goes into bifold, Credo goes into a mediator, Akapai goes into traction. These things all talk to each other through, DIDCOM using the Aries RFCs and using like all of that kind of stuff. That might be a good overall place, and people could dig down from there.
Yes, we have this going on in standard side. So David's joined us, but it is. I'm always happy. Please, my email's in the slides. Please send me emails about it, and I'll share it.
And just to give everybody hope, part of the work of the architecture SIG is to produce a set of crib sheets that says this is what a build guide might look like, this is what the standards map might look like. Because as the Open Wallet Foundation, we want to be consistent. Somebody turns up at this community, is excited and interested. If they look at each project and there's a pattern to the crib sheet for that project and understanding, they can get going, they can start building, start using and understand it. So they're not having to decompose the language of each project if there is a front door, as it were. And this is what the work we're doing at the moment to produce a series of, I call them artifacts, which are, if a project's going to document this type of thing, these are the sorts of things that everybody needs to know, so that we end up with a common language in terms of navigating it. And obviously the projects are hugely diverse. Some of them overlap with each other, many in different languages. But if we can put that map together and people can say, these are the areas that I need, they can find out all the projects that are working on those, and they can go and build them and pull them in and create that configured version. There was a wonderful presentation from British Columbia last week on this very meeting, and listening to their experience and what they were doing, and we discussed this again with them, and they are a huge contributor, and there's huge value that we can all get from knowledge sharing to make life easier for everybody.
Sorry about that, barking dog. There's a discussion happening in LFDT right now around what's called the contribution ladder. How someone starts their community and decides to make a contribution. There's a parallel use ladder that needs to be addressed, and this is a real great start to it. And I can't thank you enough for that, Romek.
Well, you're welcome. I'll carry on doing this because this is what I do. It's a normal practice. I have bits and bobs I do around it. So I'm a contractor by trade. So I have stuff around all the time, constantly. But I've had spare time because it's July, August, where everyone has vacation time, which meant that I've had several weeks. It's taken about 4 weeks to do, and it's an ongoing thing. So just set it up and see where it takes us. And it's a good start, is all I feel. But there's more to come.
Yeah, spot on to a good start. Totally agree. Sure, you're up.
You mentioned a spreadsheet for each open source dependency
Yes.
has been created. Can you talk more about that?
Okay. Every single system you have uses open source tools. Ideally, in the old-fashioned world, I have my own wallet. Which has 4 dependencies. The current fashion, which has been taken off by most businesses, is to use other people, like Noble next week, who are presenting is used in SDJWT. It shows you where things are actually, you're using parts to use to actually make the bigger picture. And what happens is that those parts need to be looked after as well, because they move as much. And one of the things to do is to check we're using the latest versions. And the other thing is to check we're not being attacked from other people who are throwing rocks constantly at us. So it's almost like it's a housekeeping job. Every time there's a release, I've got a first version of the spreadsheet for each project. I need to check it's correct and then pass it to the people concerned. So I'll take it, and we need a sort of maintainer for the groups for each project as well. So I can take it to the maintainer and say, look, this is what I've got. Same for the getting started, same for what I've usage, these things. You need one person I send it to so I can talk to them, like Stephen is for Akapai, to actually say, here's the spreadsheet I've got for your project. One, is it correct? And two, is this what I've got to guard for you? Because I do this on a weekly basis. I'm going around the world to check what's going on. And I see this from various mailing lists to see how it's working for various feeds.
Okay. Cool. Thank you. That's helpful.
If anyone wishes to see that spreadsheet, I'm happy to share it with them as well. Everything I'm doing here is meant to be as transparent as possible. So what I'm trying to do is to make a build script so people have got it. So all I'm doing from building it should hopefully come to them as, look, this is how I build it on a Macintosh. And I've got Intel and I've got M3. So I've got the two platform types in case they're different, to make sure this is how it's built and this is how we can get someone started. So that would do one of the three platforms.
Okay.
What's
All
got from this also is we need a maintainer for each project we can actually approach to say, look, I've got this bit. I found this thing. Can I share it with you?
Absolutely.
I do think the idea of having a build channel per project, which separates it from the dev channel, be a very useful thing. But we've been talking with Stephen about the practicalities of that, sub channels within projects, on Discord, for example.
Yeah.
We had that on Hyperledger for years, so I don't see any reason. We had like 10 Akapai channels on Discord on Hyperledger, so love to have that.
Okay, well, we'll talk about that with Sean in a moment, because we're just about to jump off to the architecture sig now.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Awesome presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Romic.
Yeah, thank you so much, Romic.
Yeah, excellent.
Welcome.
Lots of great action items.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Yeah, really appreciate you taking the time. And
do you want the slides, Charles? Shall I send them to you?
yes. I was going to email you for those, and I'll make sure to post them on the page for those who are following along on the recording. And
because the slide, what I've seen before is sometimes the slides don't get. We need to keep the slides on these as well as the actual recording. Recordings are great.
Right.
But slides are
I'll
just
make sure
as
the
important.
slides get on there. Yeah. Yes, thank you so much. Next week, we have the first global interop of wallets, the May 5th demonstration of the OpenID for VP, plus DC API, plus Hype, plus DCQL. And so join us for that, everybody. Thank you so much, Romic, for your time and for the presentation. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.
Cheers. Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye, all.